Welcome. I'm back to these thumbnails again because when I was turning them around the last time, I saw this thumbnail right here, and in my head, I saw this photograph. Yep, it was of a neighbor's recommitment ceremony for her marriage, and I knew immediately that thumbnail reminded me of that photo. So I am going to try to render that using my abstract thumbnail as my inspiration and jumping off. Here's the paper, the book. I'm using my Stillman birn, frame it out with my blue painter's tape. I've got my gel plate I'm going to use for my palette. I've got my pencil, my mechanical pencil. This is a Graph Gear 1000 from Pentel. I love it. 7mm lead in there. I love a mechanical pencil. So there's the photograph in the right hand corner. First of all, did I say hello and welcome back to my studio? It's Linda. Hello. And I am remembering to turn on my camera this time while I am drawing. I can't even tell you how many times I draw something out, sketch it out, and then I go to look back on the footage and I never turned on the camera. It's crazy, but this time I remembered, and here we are, ready to go. And you're here with me, and I'm so happy that you are. I am so grateful to all of you who tune in and watch. It's so wonderful to see the comments, to read them. You are all so very, very kind. Honestly, I really cannot say enough about how kind the comments are. So thank you so much for all of that. Thank you for watching and thank you for commenting. I love reading them, so please leave more. Okay, let's get to what I am doing. I am just blocking in a basic sketch. I'm not going to worry too much about details. I just really want to get the placement of the figures in my sketch. So it consists of the 4 figures there, and then the background, and I'm going to completely abstract the background. I'm pretty much going to abstract the figures as well, but you are going to know that they are people, for sure. And I'm going to be adding some collage at the end. That's my plan. I am here adding more details than I usually do. I usually don't worry too much about adding the facial planes right away in my sketch. I like to kind of like block everything in and then start adding a little bit more. But I'm thinking that since I am on this journey of pushing myself to different heights, let me change it up. Let me do something that I don't usually do. And this is something that I don't usually do, so I'm adding it. I am going to add it. I really was loving the shawl or veil that she had on, so I want to make sure that I get like the pretty folds of it. And it's a little transparent, so I'm hoping to achieve transparency when I start applying the paint. I think I do achieve it, and I'm kind of happy with the way this turns out at the end, and I hope you do too. And I would really love to know how you think I could have done something differently, maybe. And are you using your thumbnails? Are you doing what I'm doing? Are you actively searching your old sketchbooks or new sketchbooks and searching through some thumbnails that you've done or something abstract that you have done? Are you looking at them to try to find a way to do something representational? Or are you just staying with your abstract? Also, I'm not sure if I mentioned it. I should have probably many times, many weeks before, but on Thursdays, every other Thursday, I'm trying to post a video of abstracts, shorter videos, not so long, of, little abstracts that I'm doing, and maybe like little bits and bobs, that kind of thing. I have so many scraps left over from projects of paper, scraps of paper. I hate to throw them away. So I always throw them into like a little tiny scrap collage book. And now I'm starting to, let me do some thumbnails using these, because these thumbnails are really helping inspire bigger pieces and more representational pieces, which is what I really do like. I'm still finding this to be very abstracted, but I am really digging the figures along with the abstract. I really am digging it, honestly, I gotta say. All right, so I am placing all of my figures on the picture plane, and I kind of tried not to speed that part up so that you could actually see what I was doing instead of just speeding through it. So now I'm laying out some paint. I've got my Nova paints, of course, Cad Yellow Medium. I'm putting out the Phthalo Turquoise. I've got my black and white. Those are Liquitex colors. And then I've got Lucas Krill, which is that magenta at the top. You're not going to see the whole entire palette. The brush that I am using, I'm showing it to you, but you know what? The brushes, they're really incidental to me. I do not buy top-of-the-line brushes. I have a few Kolinsky Sables. I have a few really nice brushes, and I tend to hesitate using them because I'm afraid I'm going to ruin them. I really love using the cheaper brushes. I don't feel so inhibited. I like nylon. I also like hog's hair. But I like to scrub, so I am very abusive to my brushes. You see, I don't just lay down a pretty little stroke. I'm scrubbing and, I'm kind of rough on my brushes. So if I were to spend, upwards of $200 on a brush, I would be very, very sad. And you know what? I'm not a master. So I look at it that way. I don't really need to have the best of brushes. I do have I won't buy, like craft brushes. I'm not going to buy a cheap brush that's going to leave hairs behind. I will buy a better brush, but I definitely do not spend a bazillion dollars on my paintbrushes just because I do not treat them with care. I will be honest, I do not treat them with care. I'm very rough on my brushes. And that's okay. That's okay. I do wash them out. I do lay them flat to dry so that they don't rust inside the ferrule, but I'm kind of rough on them. I scrub with them a lot, and I want to be able to do that without any worry. When my husband put together my studio for me, he built me shelves and bookcases, and he did all that kind of stuff. And he's a fine woodworker. He really does beautiful, beautiful furniture. He built my dining room table, my kitchen table, a buffet for me. He's making me a hutch. I mean, you show him a picture of what you want, he will figure it out and he will build it for you. But for my studio, he wanted to do some really fine furniture. Some beautiful bookshelves that had cabinet doors and shelving that was beautifully bracketed. And I said to him, look, it's my studio. I want it to be nice, but mostly I want it to be functional. I don't need it to look beautiful. This is not something that I need to be Pinterest ready. I need to be able to work in it. I want to be able to throw paint around in my room without having to worry about getting something on the furniture or staining or chipping or, messing up any piece of furniture that you've built. So just slap together some paint, some wood, give me some shelves, get me some bookshelves, and I'll be happy. I don't need you to do anything fancy schmancy. And that's kind of how I feel about my paintbrushes. I want them to work. I want them to be functional. But I don't need them to be fancy schmancy. I just need them to do what I need them to do when I need them to do it. And that's what these brushes are. So I could go through a whole list of what I've got. I've got, Princeton's. I've got Lowell. I've got Winsor Newton brushes. I think the red brush that I was using is a Winsor Newton. The green brush I'm using is a Low Cornell Art Trek white nylon flat. I do like the flats, but I also like rounds. I think the most important thing about my uses of brushes is a revelation that I had not too long ago, maybe last year. I realized I will take out an assortment of brushes to use for a painting, and then I use one brush. I keep rinsing that brush, and I use that one brush. And I'm like, why do I have so many brushes in my studio? And I stick to the one brush that I picked up to begin with. I don't know. And I remember way back in the day when I was first painting, an instructor told me, use the biggest brush you have for the area that you're working in until you can't use the big brush anymore. So I guess that's why I work that way. I pick a brush, I use it until I can't use it anymore, and then I will size down. I think that's maybe why I do it. I don't know, but I didn't realize I was doing it until last year sometime, and then I had that revelation. So here we are. I am still using the same brush. I think I might have used the other brush for 1 or 2 strokes, but this brush right here, this is the Low Cornell flat. But I would tell you, use what you have. Use whatever brushes you have on hand. Don't worry so much about the brush. As long as it's not shedding into your painting, I think you're good. You're golden. You're golden. All right, I am adding some flesh color. Well, my version of flesh color. That's another thing. I don't ever really worry about mixing up the perfect flesh color. I couldn't tell you a recipe that I use. I don't use one part of this, one part of that. I mix it until I like it, and obviously it's all relative to what else I'm doing in the same painting. Like this flesh color, if I were to plop that down into another painting of mine, it might not look correct because I'm not doing that painting at the same time as I'm doing this one, and I'm not using the same mixes. So I will say that I like to work alla prima. So that means all at once. I like to start a painting and finish a painting in one sitting, if at all possible, because I feel it helps me keep everything unified and harmonized. I'm using the same mixes. I am, every pigment I have on the palette is somewhere else in the painting. It's in all the mixes. If I were to stop midway, and this has happened to me, if I stopped midway and then I came back the next day, laid out the same paints and started mixing, I always have a hard time. It takes me longer to get back to where I was the day before because I spend a lot of time getting back to the mixes that I've already had from the day before, if you understand what I mean. It just sets me behind the schedule, and I like painting all at once, alla prima, because I am very impatient. I don't like waiting for a finished piece. That being said, after I finish a piece, if I was doing this on a canvas, for instance, and I finished it in one afternoon, I would turn the canvas around, or I would lean it up on a wall somewhere, and I would leave it there for a few days. I would make sure that I knew what colors I used. I would make a notation in a little book. I keep like a little log of what I use on everything, so that if I needed to go back, I could. And I would leave it there for a few days before turning it around and looking at it. Because when I looked at it again, I'm going to still love it, or I am going to not love it and need to tweak it here, there, or everywhere. You know what I mean? So that is something I do on the regular. Once I finish something, if I love it when I finish it, I know it's going to sound counterintuitive, but that usually is not a good thing if I love it exactly when I finish it, because that means I'm too emotionally involved in it right that moment. Let me look at it the next day, and I'll be able to look at it with fresh eyes and a new perspective. And if I still love it, great. But usually 9 times out of 10, there's something that I will tweak just a little bit. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. You know, I know a few people that paint that don't finish it all at once, a la prima. They finish it almost to the end, and then they stop, and they let it live a few days on its own, and then they go back to it and with fresh eyes, and then they finish it. And that's an excellent, you know what, whatever works for you as an artist, as a creator, that's what you should do. This is my way of doing it. It is not the only way of doing it. Far, far and away from that. This is not the only way to do something. There are so many ways to approach a painting. So many ways. Like, for instance, I did not approach the faces first. Some people will lay in those faces first. Some people like to paint light to dark. Some people do dark to light. I tend to try to get the darks in first and then move on from there. But of course, it depends on what I'm using. If I was doing pastels, I would definitely do dark to light because it's easier to lay the light over the dark than the dark over the light. Muddies it up. Or it's very hard to get light back after you've laid dark down with soft pastels. But with acrylic paint and oil paint, you can pretty much do that. Acrylic paint, for sure, because that dries so quickly, and you can just paint over it and obliterate whatever you had below if you wanted to. Watercolor, you might need to work light to dark because you can never get back the light once you put the dark down on watercolor. And gouache, I love gouache also. You can do either or. I feel you can do either or because gouache, oh my gosh, that is a fantastic medium. I'm going to have to try doing a couple of paintings here in gouache instead of just acrylic. These are acrylics that I'm using right now. Gouache is a fun, lovely medium. It's reconstituted with water. Acrylic is not. Acrylic is basically plastic. Once it dries, it is dried. You are not going to reconstitute it. You could put layer on layer on layer of dried, you can put a layer of acrylic, let it dry, put another layer of acrylic, let it dry, and you will never reconstitute previous layers. Gouache, not true. You put a layer of gouache down. If you put another wet layer on top of it, it will reconstitute the layer below, and you could end up mucking up what you just laid down. So you just have to be aware of that because sometimes that's what you want to do. So I'm gonna have to think on that. I think I might like to do a gouache painting on here. All right, I am doing that scarf, that veil, and because it's transparent, it's a little, it was a little heavier on her body, but very transparent around the head. I'm going to try to capture that. Like I feel like around the hair, I did capture it. You could see her head through the veil. It kind of gives you the illusion of it being translucent, transparent. So, I'm happy with the way the top of her head looks. And I'm going to work on that piece near her face eventually to make it a little bit more transparent looking. All right, so I've got all my figures in. I've got that pattern, that pink pattern on that female's body, which I am loving. It's very abstract. I don't even know what the heck the pattern was on the actual woman's clothes. I don't know. But I've got some sort of a pattern going on there, and I'm happy with that. I added that dark blue spot down at the bottom left because I feel like it needed it for balance. It was too light. It needed something down there. My thumbnail doesn't have that, but that's okay. My thumbnail was my inspiration, my jumping off point. I don't need to have it be exact. I'm going to be moving into collage in a few minutes, but right now I'm adding some features to the females, the figures in the front, and you're going to see that I'm not really drawing in an eye. I'm doing maybe like 2 or 3 dots for the eyes. I'm putting in the dark pupil, and then I put 2 colors next to the pupils, and that's my eye. I'm not painting in an eye, I'm not drawing in an eye. I'm just giving the indication of eyes. Yeah. Try to indicate a little bit of the mouth, which I will have to change because I think I put one of them in too high, and I do end up adjusting that with my flesh. You know, that's the great thing about acrylic, because it dries. When you add something to the top of it, it's almost like using an eraser. So I can adjust till my heart's content. I'm loving the background so far. I like that background. I'm getting some space. I like that upper right, the upper left. I feel like that's giving me a little bit of depth back there. I can see that it recedes. It's a little bit of a cooler color there, so it's receding. This predominantly is a cool palette. You know, I've got the blues, the violets. The flesh is warm, and the neutrals, the tans, are the only real warmth going on. So it's a predominantly cool color palette. It's an analogous color palette, right? With one complementary. I've got the blue and the purples, or the blue and the violets. Those are analogous. They're right next to each other on the color wheel. And then I've got the flesh and the hair on that blonde. Would be kind of like the opposite, like the oranges of the orangey yellows on the color wheel, which would be the opposite of the blues and the violets. Yeah. All right, I am just working that face. I know it looks kind of like a mask, and I'm not unhappy about that. I do like the idea that it looks kind of mask-like. I am still channeling Joan Erdley, that artist from Scotland. She was during the 30s, 40s. She died in the 60s. And the way she defined figures and faces in her art really speaks to me. I don't want to say macabre, but very mask-like to me. And I'm so channeling her right now. Of course, I'm not like her. I'm not as good as her, but she is in my head, and I'm thinking, you know what? Let me treat this face like Joan Erdley would treat it. Not precious. I'm not doing it precious. Yeah. Okay, so I am almost done with fiddling. I'm realizing at this point that I am really overworking that face. To give that face a rest, let her be, for goodness sake. And I'm going to start moving on to collage. The collage I'm going to do is predominantly the blues, and I think I might even take out a couple of neutrals, yeah. And of course my asemic writing. I love asemic writing in collage, you know. There's only a handful of paintings that I've done that I haven't added the asemic writing. You know, that writing that you pretend you're writing something, but it really doesn't say anything, and then you put it into your work. I mean, I could just do it on my directly, but I'm not going to. So I'm showing you a close-up of the faces. You see, I didn't render a face. It's just an impression of a face. I didn't do any details. There's no details in that face. Okay, yay! Collage. Let's pull out the collage papers. I took out a ton of paper that I thought would be useful. I use some of it, and I don't use others. I always feel like I need more choices than I end up using, and that's okay. So I'm going to put some music on while I add the collage. You don't have to hear me babble the whole entire video. And that collage paper right there is a paper towel. Yeah, paper towel that I mopped up some spilled paint remnants. And I said, wow, I really love the way that looks, and I saved it, and I'm going to use it in the arm. I'm going to get some highlights on that arm. All right, let me put some music on for you to enjoy. Okay, so we're done with the collage, and I'm just going to be tweaking the faces a little bit now. And it's going to seem like they get worse before they get a little bit better, and that is absolutely true. What you're seeing is what you're going to be saying that, wow, those got really bad before they get better. Not to worry. So I am erasing his mouth where it was, because of course once I do something in the painting, it kind of adjusts everything. Like I changed the orientation of his face just a tad, and his mouth was way too high. So we just covered that up. Now I am going in and adding eyebrows. I don't usually like to add heavy brows, but in this case I did, in order to pull them away again. I just need them to be there subtly. So I need to draw them in first, paint them in first, and then I will cover them quite significantly. And there, look at that. I picked up some blue paint on my my towel. I didn't realize it, and I put a splotch there, but not to worry. Easily taken care of, and I'm just tweaking the planes of her face. And that that eye, I wasn't happy with how dark the eyes were. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to fix that right now. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just tweaking the eyes until I get them to where I want them to be. I will adjust them, trust me. These are going to get adjusted. But for the most part, I'm happy with the way they look and the feeling I'm getting with this painting. I hope you enjoyed this process. And now, to finish it, I decided to take out the Neocolor 2 water-soluble crayons, which I love. I haven't used them in the last few videos. And I'm just going to pick out some highlights. And I'm going to use some of the colors to give me a little bit more, just some mark making. That's all. I just want to get some mark making. I wanted a different texture, just other than paint and paper. So let me get some of this texture in. And because I'm using the Neocolor 2 crayons over paint and paper, it kind of skips here and there, so it gives me more texture. Up close, this is really very textured looking, and I really dig that a lot. So I am definitely subduing those eyebrows. I feel like I am really, let's kind of like tone down your eyebrows there, lady. You had heavy duty eyebrows, and I did kind of tone them down. But in the end, you still can see that she has eyebrows there. They're just not as heavy as they were when I painted them on. I mean, I really slapped them on heavily there, I felt. So the Neocolor, the 2 crayons, they are really helping me to add a little tweaking here and there. Not too much. I'm not going to do too much. I am going to go on to this outfit here and separate it. I definitely want it to look like a top and a bottom, whatever she had on the bottom. I don't even know if it was pants or a skirt. But, just that one line there that I added at the bottom of that pink outfit gave me that separation. Okay, she's wearing a shirt. Got it. And just like that, we're done. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please consider hitting the like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. Leave a comment, all the things. I'm so glad that you were here. I'm so glad that you watched. I'm so glad to be here and spending my time with you. And I can't wait until you're back again with me inside my studio. Bye.